All right, guys. Good to be with you. Um, Good win against a really good Indiana team that is physical and tough and well coached. And we knew that coming in here, obviously they just played a couple nights ago. Um, but that the run they made in the first half, I think we knew they were going to come in with great competitive spirit as they did. But I thought some of the stretches we had in the second half were really good. Um, I thought we had our guards played a really good floor game between Dwayne and CJ and a couple of our other guys, and then we had some guys step up and have really good nights. So good team win over a really good ball club.
All right, we'll start questions with Brendan Gulick and have Stephen Hellwagon on deck. Brendan.
Hi, Coach. Congrats on another nice day. Overarching question about the efficiency on offense. You guys averaged almost 1.3 points per possession again, and it feels like that's becoming quite a theme here. Why has this offense been so efficient? What are you seeing that's leading to that kind of success rate?
Well, I think gifted and versatile offensive players would be my first answer to that, Brendan. I think gifted and versatile offensive players, and I think they bought into playing together. They bought into playing together. And I think, for example, tonight, Justin, while he may not have had great numbers, what he did is create great space on the floor because of the threat that he is. So, I think versatile and gifted offensive players, which you have to have in today's college and today's NBA for that matter. And then they bought into playing together.
And how about the mentality around trying to stay in a game where you raced out to an early lead, 19 straight points at one point. It was 21-6. And I think there's this natural tendency when you rip off a big run like that to have a little bit of a letdown. But you guys have been pretty good this year about mitigating those stretches of play. Can you maybe enlighten us a bit on how this team has, hit the reset button quickly when perhaps the other side has gone on a little bit of a stretch?
Well, you're not going to run away from teams in this league, and you're certainly not going to run away from NCAA tournament teams like Indiana is, right away. I think over time, maybe you have a chance to create some distance. We were fortunate to do that tonight, but I think it's a maturity thing, and I think we've been okay with that this year. I think we've gotten a little bit better at having the kind of maturity you need in certain games to be able to stretch leads and win the next possession. But I don't think we've always been great at that. So I think for us, it's we got to keep focusing on kind of winning the next possession regardless of the score.
Next up, Steve Hellwagon with Patrick Murphy on deck. Steve.
Yeah, Coach. The two big runs you had, 19-0 in the first half, they went 8 minutes without a field goal, and 22-4 in the second half. I think they had one field goal in that 7-minute stretch. That's 15 minutes where they managed one made shot. Just I know you won it for 40 minutes, but in those two stretches, your guys seemed to dictate to Indiana what they could and couldn't do.
I thought we were good defensively in those segments, Steve, and then I thought we had the ability to get the ball where we needed it offensively. But I thought it started. I think you're right. It started there with our defense and trying to limit their effectiveness. Trace is a load. He's a phenomenal player. Race is a really good player. Their guards, Franklin's terrific. Finney is tough and competitive, and so limiting those guys. And then I thought Hunter came in and gave him life, particularly in the first half. So for us, it was important to try to limit their offensive efficiency there in the second half, and I think we did that in those stretches.
Yep, and Suing, he was keyed up from the start. I think he had 6 rebounds in the first 5 or 6 minutes and fought through traffic to get the ball to the basket a couple times on some tough drives. 16 and 10 for him today. Just and kind of a bounce back game too, it seemed like. Just what were your thoughts about what he gave you today?
He played with motor. He's a talented kid, and he's got to go to the glass. because that's how he can really impact the game. I thought he did that. He attacked the rim. He was able to attack when he needed to, made good decisions, played with force. And I thought defensively he was pretty sound too. And, he's such a big body that his ability to he had 10 rebounds, 5 defensive. Like those are really important plays. There was a couple balls that were jumping around that he just went and got. And then obviously he hit that big 3 right there in the middle of the floor.
Thanks.
Next up, Patrick Murphy with Phil Harrison on deck. Patrick.
Chris, when we talked to you yesterday, we discussed how Indiana had kept games close, gone to overtime, all those things. You guys come out with a 19-point win, and I know this game at times was closer than that, but to do that, what do you credit your guys with for getting to that point? And, what does that feel like knowing how good this team's been against top teams this year?
Yeah, Patrick, I think I feel good that we were able to, extend that lead against a quality team. I don't know in this league, if you take too much into one game, it tends to affect you in your next game. I just thought we played with maturity, Patrick, and that was good to see, and played maturity with the lead, and physicality when we needed to. I thought our bench gave us some quality minutes, but you have to do that. We've got a couple days here that will get our legs under us, and then prepare for a Penn State team that I think everybody's well aware how good they are and what they did to us here at our place.
All right, next up, Phil Harrison with Bill Landis on deck. Phil.
Hey, Coach, congrats again on the win.
Thanks, Phil.
It seems like this year you've got multiple guys, maybe more guys that can get to their spot where they want in the lane and finish through contact around the hoop. I'm wondering if you knew that was the case in the preseason when you're putting things together, if it's kind of emerged throughout the year, and if you could speak a little bit about what that means for you guys this year.
Phil, I think roster construction as a coach is really important today. And I think, you can't always get it maybe exactly like you'd like it, but as you do, whether, take over a program a few years ago, or you maybe have a large class that graduates or and whatever, for whatever reason, as you have to reconstruct the roster, you're trying to look for certain things that we feel like is important to us, and then the balance that, balancing a lineup that can play together. So maybe I'm being too vague, but I did feel like our parts fit, had the potential to really fit this year. I did also feel like defense is going to be a concern coming in, but I thought our parts fit if we could get our guys playing to their potential. And, to this point, it's, I think, proven out.
Thanks.
All right, next up, Bill Landis with Rob Aller on deck. Bill.
Hey, Chris, it seemed like in the few moments where maybe you guys needed to just ratchet things up a little bit more defensively, just kind of get back to guarding more consistently, CJ was a guy who really kind of set the tone for you. And I don't, there's like no metric for that, I guess, but it just seems like that's what he does. I don't know. Would you say that's what he does best for you guys right now?
Yeah, bite. He provides bite for us. Sometimes he fouls too much. He and I laugh about that, but bite and physicality and physicality at the point of attack. And then also he's really good, as we've talked about, Bill, at reading scouting report things. He doesn't miss too many things when it comes to scouting report. And that should be the expectation for a guy who's played like he has, but he's great with that stuff. But he just provides bite.
And you just mentioned a few moments ago about playing with maturity when you guys have a lead. And I'm wondering if you could extrapolate that out any bit to just sort of the season you're having. You guys were just revealed as a number 1 seed for the tournament. I know there's a long way to go. You're chasing a Big Ten title, and you're at the top of this league, I guess. And it would seem that there's a certain maturity required to hold that standing and yet continue to improve. Do you feel like your team is showing you that at the moment?
I do. I think we've got to continue to grow in that area right now. I think the biggest thing as a coach right now is we've got to get better. And the moment that any type of complacency comes in, and we see it in practice, it needs to be addressed. We've got to continue to get better, and we've got to stay fully engaged as a group from scout team on down. So I think that's the biggest challenge. But Bill, I think we've been somewhat inconsistent in sometimes playing with the lead, but we were better today.
Next up is Rob Aller with Bruce Hooley on deck. Rob.
Hey, Chris, you can hear me all right?
Yeah, I got you, Rob.
All right. Well,
you're 2 for 2 after that incident a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, you're 6-1 against Indiana since you arrived here. So I'm asking, what's the secret sauce? By that, what I mean is, every team has a DNA. Do you have to prep for them in a way that's conducive to winning for you guys?
Well, I think the prep does require quite a bit, Rob, given that they run a lot of stuff. They run really good stuff. I don't typically look at records with individual programs unless somebody shares that. I will say this, Rob, in all reality, we have pulled a couple out that have been, let's just say, players make plays. We've been fortunate, whether it's CJ Jackson's 3 or whatever the case may be. We've had a couple that have went our way. We've had really close games against them. And, but I think that can turn at any time. Before we were going into the Michigan State game, I unfortunately heard on the radio coming over that I was 0-4 in the last 4 games versus them. So, I don't really get into a whole lot of that. I think the reality is we've had a couple that we pulled out against Indiana that have been very close games that we've in some ways have been fortunate to win, but our guys have made plays. This one was a little bit unique in that most of our games have been much tighter than this.
The last thing for me is, when you were at Butler, how close attention did you pay to Indiana down there?
Well, listen, it's Indiana, right? It's they love their hoops, and I grew up, as many know, in a basketball. I've worked in or grown up in Kentucky, North Carolina, Indiana. Those are tremendous basketball states. So, they have incredibly avid support for their program. So, I was focused on our program, but we did play them a couple times, Rob, when Tom was there in the Crossroads Classic. So, you keep an eye on them because you're going to play them at least every other year.
Thanks.
All right, next up is Bruce Hooley with Adam Jardy on deck. Bruce.
Can you step outside the job you have for a second and tell us what it must be like to coach against you? They get it down to, or coach against your team this year. They get it down to like 5 a couple times. And it's not Liddell. It's not Washington. It's a Suing 3 once. It's a CJ Walker 3 at the shot clock buzzer.
Yeah.
It's a Zed Key offensive rebound. I mean, I'm sure you've played teams that you got the guys that you're worried about at the top of the scouting report, and it ends up not being the guys at the top of the scouting report. Yeah, no,
that's a great point, Bruce. Because I thought a couple of those possessions were really critical. And listen, that's happened to us at times, but as a coach, what you kind of have to do is, you just got to keep fighting on because, I'm sure they're looking at the numbers and saying, one was an end of clock 3 we threw in. CJ did a great job getting it off. Those were 2 difficult shots. And, we were fortunate that it gave us a little bit of breathing room. But you're right. I think those are challenges in our game because they can take the wind out of your sails a little bit because by all accounts, those were a couple really good possessions defensively for Indiana.
And on Zed, did you anticipate him being any kind of this efficient at competing immediately the way he is? I mean, he's not back down from Coburn or Garza or anybody. I think all of us assume from his ranking, which we all put too much emphasis on, that he was a
Say
developmental
that again.
player.
Sorry. Yeah, no, Bruce, to your point, I think there is too much to be made of rankings. We knew we had a good player. I would say, Bruce, that the reality is probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks into practice, I think is when we felt that he was going to play a pretty important role on this team.
All right. Next up is Adam Jardy with Spencer Holbrook on deck. Adam.
Chris, when we talked to Justice, he was speaking about the rebounding effort. And he said that was something you had addressed with the team the last couple of days, especially on the offensive end. Is that just a want-to thing? Was there something like stylistically you guys were able to change to be more effective at that, or how did you see that improve today?
No, he's such a good athlete that it was addressed specifically, with him because he's such a good athlete. It plays to his strength, and he's so good, he's big, and with our lineup the way we start, it's a little bit of a difficult matchup at times. So I think that's what I love about Justice is. Listen, he was disappointed the other night with probably not playing as much as he wanted to play, and probably not playing as well as he wanted to play. He didn't blame anybody. Just came back ready to work. And we addressed those things with him. I think that's a sign of a really good player. He knew he had to play with a little bit more motor on that end. And when he does, I think he's really effective.
I was asking more in the context of it sounded like what he said. It was a team-wide thing. That as a team, you guys had maybe let some of your offensive rebounding numbers slip. And when you see what Justin,
we did, but he's a big part of that.
Okay. Yeah.
We did, but he is a big part of that because when we've rebounded the ball offensively well, he's been a big part of it.
And Zed as well. I know you just answered a few questions about him, but what he gives you at that end when he's engaged like he was tonight, how hard is that to maybe identify that skill when you're recruiting somebody, and how important is that in games like this?
Well, the old Rick Majerus, big guys, you look for hands and feet first, and that is really true with a guy like Zed. Hands and feet first. He's got really good both in both areas.
All right, and our last three here will be Spencer Holbrook, Stephen Means, and Colin Hathaway. Spencer, you're first.
Chris, I know you answer these kind of questions all the time, but with each game that passes, do you become more amazed by the way these guys kind of just fall in love with their roles and knowing their roles better and better as the season goes on?
Well, I think it's been probably one of the biggest factors for our success. There's no question is our guys embracing the role and starring in the role. Now that's fluid. Hopefully that'll continue. Hopefully guys will continue to embrace that because we're going to need everybody on our team and in various situations. But it's been really impressive to this point.
All right, Stephen Means and then Colin Hathaway. Stephen.
So it's kind of with Justice again. His versatility and his skill set kind of allows you to make up for some of the things that this roster may lack. Like you guys aren't the biggest team, but I mean he rebounds the ball pretty well. And when CJ was out, you pretty much put him at point guard. Can you just talk about his versatility and how much of that when he transferred here, how much you saw and how that maybe allowed you to, maybe mess with the lineups a little bit more?
Yeah, Stephen, that's what we loved about him when we were looking at recruiting him as a transfer is just his multi-position versatility. He did not play point guard at Cal, but we felt like potentially he could play point guard, or he's a guy you could play through offensively. He played more of kind of the 3 and the 4 there. But, it's critical for us. I think it's defensive versatility. And to your point, we may not be we aren't the biggest teams inside. That's clear. But he adds to our overall size to where we've got good size on the perimeter most times, which we knew was going to be important for us. So his positional length has been critical.
And we'll finish up with Colin Hathaway. Colin?
Just one last one on Justice. I know you've talked a lot about, wanting him to be more consistent. Now you've had him in the program for a year and a half. How best do you get that consistency out of him and the game-to-game thing that you're going to need, especially when the postseason comes?
That's a good point. I just think he's got to keep working. He's got to keep understanding what good play, good possessions looks like. He's got to stay aggressive. He was one of the first ones in the gym this morning at 7:30, getting extra shots up. He's got to keep working, keep a positive mindset. I think if he does that, he'll continue to grow because he's a talented kid. It's not going to be perfect every night for him. He'll have other nights where he struggles, but I think if he has that approach, he'll keep getting better because of who he is as a kid and a player.
Thanks.
All right, Coach. Not quite midnight like the other night, but appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks, guys.